start recording and transcription. Good.
All right.
The new version, premium.
Yeah, we'll see how it works.
All right. This is a Community Preservation Committee meeting on October 30th, 2023. And I'm the chair. My name is Ann Mazar, and I represent the Land Use Committee. Dan?
Dan Byer, I represent the Parks Commission.
Mike Goddard, Select Board.
Peter Denton, Housing Authority.
All right. Did you get a chance to look at the minutes?
I did.
Kathy's on too, I think. I don't know if
Oh,
she's-
hey, Kathy.
Hi. And I did get a chance to look at the minutes, and I'm representing the Historic Commission.
I forgot you were on the CPC now. Wow.
No,
Nice to have you.
thank you.
I did make a change in the minutes. When I was talking about the totals of the Community Preservation Fund, I had it at like 3.1 million, but I bumped it down to 2.5 because we don't know how much money we're going to get this year, so I wanted to be very conservative on what was in the minutes. So,
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as written.
okay.
I'll second.
All right, any discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Peter, did you aye?
I wasn't there.
Oh, okay,
Abstain, whatever.
okay.
Trust us.
All right, an aye. The next item is to vote on the Community Preservation Coalition dues, which is $1,750. And this is like annual that we give Preservation Coalition. They're extremely helpful. They brought in so much money to Mendon. Last year alone, they brought in an extra $75,000 by lobbying the legislature to get budget surplus money. So I think that this money is very, a good use of this money, and we get a lot from it.
I think we talked about this last year when this came up.
Mm-hmm.
Got some
Yep.
documentation from you just to kind of, because we were curious about what it did for us, and I think we approved it last year based on that information.
Mm-hmm.
I'll
So
make a
would someone
motion-
like to, okay,
I'll make a motion to approve payment of $1,750 for dues to the Coalition, Community Preservation Coalition.
What's that number again?
1,750.
I second it. I just didn't get it.
Okay. Any more discussion?
I do. I do.
Okay, what, Peter?
I second it.
Yeah, Peter seconded.
Oh, I thought you had more.
Yeah.
So any discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Kathy, aye.
Okay, aye. All right, and then we have the two items on the town meeting warrant. Article 10 is for the 18-hole disc golf course. And at the FinCom meeting, they suggested that we just ask for the design money and then come back at the annual town meeting, and ask for the equipment and everything else and the installation. And so I was thinking that maybe we could change it. Well, first of all, I was thinking that, and I talked to Ellen about this, we could change the amount to $10,000 for the design. And then just say for design services and cut out the equipment, signage, T-pads, but just say design for an 18-hole disc golf course. Location to be determined. Does someone want to make a motion and we can talk about it maybe?
I'll make that motion.
Okay. Second,
I'll second.
Mike or Peter? Okay, Mike, okay. So any discussion on this?
I can tell you, so I had a conversation with Sean Clifton just in passing, just about like the concept. It sounds like we're gonna need that design in order to go out and get the pricing to say, hey, what would this cost to install? So I think it is gonna have to be a two-phase project, whoever ends up getting that contract, but we'll need to know what needs to go out wherever.
Yeah, it definitely needs to be the two-phase. I think that what the FinCom was saying is why set the money aside for the equipment and, what else was it?
I think Jack
Equipment and
brought up-
signage.
Right.
And
And not
so-
knowing if you needed parking, things like that, but Jack also, Hodgins also questioned, does any of it belong on the STM versus an ATM? And can we do design if we don't know the parcel? I mean, we can't do design, but would we pay for design if we're not even sure where it's going to go yet? Because I think where it goes might be of interest to people and whether or not they even want it. So why spend the design money if potentially it doesn't move forward? That was the other thing.
In answer to the first part, the gentleman that does this work comes out in the winter to do all that. So it's very likely that if we waited until May and then called him up, he might say, great, the next time I can come out is next December 2024.
There's only one guy that does it?
Well, I think this is who she found that did the work in Milford.
Yeah.
So I guess he travels in the winter. So I think that's the argument, is to do it now rather than delay the project another multiple months. Because I think if we didn't get the money until May, then you'd have to have the design done. I think it would significantly delay this project.
Is it easy to explain what the hell this even is?
Yeah, here, let me find a picture for you, and I'll share it. And then I
I mean,
don't know,
Peter, basically, it's, you have Frisbees and you throw them, instead of having like a hole, like in a golf course, you throw it into a basket. And so there's 18 of these like poles with baskets on them. And it's a nice way to get people outside. Families can do it, all skill levels.
so it's like something like that.
Yeah, that doesn't even, I mean, think about a golf course, you lay out
No,
fairway.
no, that's why I was wondering. Sounds like it needs quite an area.
Well, so according to Ellen, I haven't done it much, but part of the challenge is it's not just a big open field.
Right.
You leave the trees, it's kind of like golf, so there's obstacles to get around.
Didn't she estimate like 18, I want to say 18 acres, but I might be wrong, but she had an estimate for a parcel size.
Yeah, there's like a best practices that they were telling me, I think it was an acre per hole.
Yeah,
So how far apart do they want the baskets then?
I honestly don't know. I think that the idea is that this company comes out and he looks at the property and then he'll design the course to be a certain par level. Some are easier, some are harder, but they're going to take into account all the natural things that might be out there.
I walked she walked Inman Hill, she walked the Menontown Forest, and I walked the Paddock property with her, and she really liked the Paddock property because through that property, there's a lot of cart paths, so there's really nice areas to be able to throw in one field. So she liked that property, thought it would work well and very minimal cutting of brush or anything like that.
I mean,
But I think the 18 acres is more, not that you're using the whole 18 acres, it's just that you want to have the holes or baskets somewhat apart from each other, so you have to walk, usually it's like 3 to 5 tries to get it in the basket, so you're kind of throwing it, working your way to the basket.
I mean, they used, when it started, they actually played it on a golf course, and on a 9-hole course, you're walking 3 miles up and down the 9
Oh.
fairways.
At least.
Yeah, so it's,
I know.
they can make it compact and still give it a walk if they want to.
Yeah, I think the issue, the town forest has rules about clearing brush that would make it very complicated. I think that Inman is fairly remote.
I think the parse, finding the place and getting agreement on the place to put it is going to be the biggest challenge.
Right.
Yeah, I'm not necessarily against this idea, but I do know there's a lot of strong feelings. I mean, at the FinCom meeting, one gentleman, I think it might have been the chair, basically said, I don't want to commit any land to this until we figure out sports fields. Specifically a turf field, based on what they were saying. And so there's a big push right now within the community to
Absolutely. I
drive.
think from Parks' perspective, so we had looked, Paddock property has a lot of interesting recreation potential. So I know, the previous meeting, there was concerns about hunting, but to me, I think it's likely that we might open a portion of this parcel for a future field.
Well, I mean, I think it would make sense to try to, from a land use standpoint, is to figure out maybe paddock becomes that, a parcel that's more focused on activity, like sports or, I mean, disc golf is technically a sport too, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
So if you can start to figure out where this stuff goes so that, Barry brought up a good point, he's like, he doesn't want to limit hunting in other parcels, right?
Right.
So how do you start to segregate the parcels we
Well,
own?
let
So-
me ask you quick, not to interrupt you, but what are you gonna do? You said something about putting turf, on the ground.
There's a group that's out there looking to focus on getting some turf fields into Mendon Upton for sports.
my understanding though, at least a chunk of that proposal is converting the existing soccer field at high school into a turf field and restructuring fields at the high school. I don't know if there's.
I haven't
other-
seen,
I mean, I know this,
I
yeah.
see, it's part of their capital planning process.
Right.
They're gonna present in our next
Yeah, I don't know
meeting.
whether that'll be
So-
proposed. I've heard that too. I mean, we need more fields. big
Right, well,
time.
what's interesting is from the school standpoint, it's part of their capital planning, but the gentleman that was there's also I'll say a parents organization that's driving it as well, and I think
I thought they were trying to get away from,
turf.
turf. When I say turf, I'm talking about the fake stuff.
Yeah.
You're talking
Yeah,
about
the
turf,
old
that's a
fake stuff,
turf, turf,
definitely.
or-
Well, I think that, the technology is changing, but I think that the big advantage is it doesn't limit you because of weather, because of snow. You basically snow blow the snow right off of it and use it.
My knees prefer grass, but everybody wants to play on turf, so.
Really?
Yeah.
I think there are concerns and new stuff has come out, but
So-
I'm sure they'll.
People getting hurt on turf.
So
compared
I would
to-
love to see this go forward, because I think the other thing about this, Peter, that I've said, like I think in the last meeting, is that, we talk about economic development. Now, this is not going to be a business, but the more people we can bring into Mendon and have those people spend money in Mendon, it does help the local businesses, right? So things like this, I've walked the Milford, because I walked the Milford path, and their little frisbee golf is off their Milford walking path. I was curious. I walked around in there and looked at it and stuff. And if I were someone who were to play, if I went and played there, I'd probably spend some time in Milford or spend some money in Milford. You know what I mean? So I actually think that this type of thing is actually good use for some of our town-owned land, because it brings people in. I think the local businesses would like to see that kind of traffic come through town, especially in warm weather.
I think also, what I like about doing the design is the person that's designing it will help say which is the best location. And so then at the annual town meeting, we can come back with some, intelligent information. And about the sports fields, I think CPA fund, can buy the land and do the excavation for a turf field, but they can't pay for the turf field, but that's still a lot. And I think that we should keep our eyes open for land specifically for sports fields. So I don't think that they have to come together, at the same time. It can be two separate things, and we have the money in CPA to do that. There was one parcel on Millville that we looked at. Nah,
Totally
yeah.
not- Well, I'm told it's being developed privately, but
Is that the one behind the gates on Millville?
yes.
Yeah.
Bill and I walked that like 10 years ago. It was actually a
Yeah.
great spot. It had
Right.
parking on
Yep.
that right-hand side. And then it was
But-
$1 million at that point. It
And
was-
well, the thing about that was that it just has one entrance. I think that was the issue. People were concerned about not having an in and an out, but it was flat,
Yeah, and you could have courts and fields. I mean, there was a lot of,
The
anyway.
problem is these parcels are so remote. The thing with Paddock is I think we would make sure that if that was a location, you'd say you need to not limit, make sure you don't close up an area if we were gonna future open this up,
Well, and
so maybe it needs to be on the boundaries.
but I think that's going to be part of it. So we're getting off
Yeah.
topic, but I mean, I do think that whether it's, I don't know if it's a land use committee in, but some future visioning of what to do with town-owned land and how to think about it is really needed. And that could actually be something that, the select board probably needs to, in conjunction with planning board, start to figure out what is that future vision, you know what I mean? In conjunction with
Right.
committees.
That's what we were talking about with the open space before we started. There's literally a matrix in that chart that we should fill in.
Kathy?
Well, we had just, I know that we'd forgotten about it, last time we sat down and talked, but we still have the Trask property, the potential there.
Oh, right, yes, yes.
Sports field, and, might be a good time to really start digging in and seeing what can and can't be done there.
Which property?
Trask.
The Trask property.
And that has a lot of potential, and it's right by Misco, which is amazing.
Right.
The issue with that is there's some legal stuff we need to work through with the life estate, and we're looking into that. So that's true.
Right.
That would be, and they have open fields there too, so that has a lot of potential.
They do. And then they've got the roadway there, the old Saltbox Road, which can
Yeah.
probably provide parking and movement of vehicles. Something to think about.
Yes.
So did Dan move, did he move on, made the motion, right, Dan?
Yes.
For the 10,000?
Just for the
Design?
That's
And you seconded it, and we have a second.
That's just the design from Ellen.
Just the design, $10,000.
Okay.
Should we vote on it? Are you ready?
Yep.
Yeah?
I am.
Okay, so all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Abstain.
And one good thing too, when you think about the parcels, if there are parcels that would totally not be in scope for this, if we know that going in, that might be good to share as well, because questions about where's it gonna go is gonna come up, and you can say, well, it won't go here, and this is gonna help us figure out the best spot for it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like Town Forest, Dan, if you're right,
Right, I think
that's,
make like a short list.
yeah.
I think Ellen, I'll talk to her if she's gonna say something or if I'm gonna say something
Okay.
to explain.
Yeah, I kind of like this. This is good. All right. So the next motion, Article 11, is for the Vandersloot property, and this is to purchase a conservation restriction jointly with Metacomet Land Trust. Do you want me to read the motion, or do you guys? I sent it to you, although Peter doesn't have it. Do you want me to read it, Peter?
I've got what you had in the minutes.
Right, but it ends up it's like more, and I just sent an email out with it. So do you want me to read it?
No, you don't have to.
I can print it if I can find it, but
It's pretty much that the Community Preservation Committee recommends the town vote to acquire a conservation restriction that would be held by Metacomet Land Trust and the Mendon Conservation Commission on the Vandersloot property, 101 and 109 North Avenue. And then it says that the town, we recommend that the town appropriate $225,000 from the undesignated Community Preservation Fund account to fund the conservation restriction.
put it on the screen. I saw that email over the weekend. Did council, or is there still, and this is from the state, right?
This is from the state, the change, they had North Street, I changed it to North Avenue. And then, I added Metacomet Land Trust because the control would be with both, and so town council's making sure that that's okay to say that. The Vandersloot would feel more comfortable, having that both Metacomet Land Trust and the town would have the control on the conservation restriction. I don't think that'll be a problem, but.
Would the motion, the vote be pending town council confirmation on the wording?
I guess, yeah, probably.
I'll say so moved if that counts for a motion.
Okay,
I'll second.
okay, Kathy. So, and I guess pending approval with or without the Metacomet Land Trust, so that,
Right.
so that we wouldn't have to revote it, right? Okay. Any more discussion?
Back to Frisbee golf, and I think you answered this, because I asked, well, could we put the Frisbee golf, so are you familiar with the property? And so we're buying development rights, so in perpetuity, it's going to stay as is, preserved, except for where the house is and the farm up near the North Ave. And there's no hunting there, which was, I think, a question that was brought up last time. So my question is, well, can we put the Frisbee golf someplace we know where there's no hunting, since this is a fairly large parcel? You know, in that way, you know, there's less conflict around either vote, if that makes sense, you know? And you said it couldn't, but I wasn't sure if that was just because, you know, it can't, or because we'd have to ask and see if they'd be amenable to it.
I asked them. Actually, Lisa Mozinski asked them, and they said no, they didn't want that on there. They really wanted to be more of a nature preserve. That's the whole thing of, you know, having students come on the property, hiking, and, you know, just enjoying the wildlife and nature. That's what they want for the property, and it's really gorgeous. I have some pictures which I'll have at the town meeting, so people can see the property.
It's worth pointing out, because I looked at this too, it would have to be on the back parcel, so you'd have a situation where you'd have to build a road to get there, or people would be parking like in front of their house and hiking 2 miles into the woods to go use this disc golf course. So I think just from the location, unless there was a way to access the location of it, it would be a
That's fine.
challenge for
I think it's one of those things you think about land use, town-owned land, though, if you've.
But we're not gonna own this.
No, we're not going to own it, but
Yeah.
we're not going to own it, but we're also going to have access to it. So if the town has access for hiking and that sort of thing on this land, then maybe other stuff has to go in other land we do own to balance. Because you got diverse needs or wants in terms of how land gets used, right? So, you know, you've got a hunting community, you've got passive recreation, you've got naturalists, et cetera. So how do you balance that? That's going to be the challenge. And I think you have to take.
Yeah, I would say that, I mean, in terms of this property, of all the properties that the town has bought or supported to buy, all of it allows hunting. So this is very unusual, and it's one piece of property. It still provides wildlife habitat for deer and whatnot.
Yeah.
Yeah,
If the
so,
deer get smart,
and,
they might all run to this property. Hunters are out of luck, right? If the deer get smart.
yeah.
I agree. I think that's a good point.
Let's hope so.
Of the overall picture.
So, I mean,
of all this
I'm in
property,
support of this.
make sure that
I'm just trying to think about the potential minefields that pop up on the floor and trying to be cognizant of different perspectives.
What I love about this property and the Trask property is they're right in close proximity to MISCO. So, and I've been working with teachers at MISCO who want to do the outdoor education and they don't have a lot of places to go. So this is so perfect because it's a block away. They could literally walk to the property with the class. It's a nice opportunity.
And I have an interesting question for you. Is there CPA funding available to kind of move the Shirley Smith Agricultural Center forward? And is there connectivity between the Vandersloot property and the Shirley Smith property? Or
Yes.
the proposed idea?
Yeah, there is. And I talked to Gary Smith and this is like a potential site for the senior center. And I talked to the senior center committee and both of them are very willing to have the parking be at that 131 North Ave, which abuts Vandersloot, and then walk down, have a trail that goes along the wall so that you'd be able to see all the farm fields and everything, and then attach right to the Vandersloot trails. And then the Vandersloot trails go into Hopedale on conservation land. So it's really ideally positioned.
Yeah, boy. Yeah, that definitely is. That's great.
we can't pay for the building, correct? We can't create
The
a new
building of what?
this potential future agricultural center. But we could support.
We can't pay for it?
I don't think CPA can pay for
Yeah.
new buildings. Correct?
She froze.
You froze, I think.
Okay. Sorry, everybody froze. What was that again?
I said, I don't think CPA can pay for new buildings, like, we can't build the agricultural center.
No,
So I
But
don't
what
know.
it has to be like if,
A realistic standard.
No, I mean, I think there were plans to build the Shirley Smith Agricultural Center, wherever that was gonna be. The senior center expansion looked at that parcel,
Okay.
and there was some discussion, say, oh, I think they'd be amenable to that too, but they're still figuring out between 2 or 3 parcels now where to do that work, so.
We could build the trails and things to
Yeah.
interconnect.
And part of the
Right.
senior center expansion includes walking trails, which is why it would fit nicely there, or maybe up here, they're looking the corner of 16 and North Ave, that parcel too, for the senior center.
But I mean, another open space and rec plan, there's a big
Yeah.
need for at least some ADA accessible trails too, that would make sense to have them located near the senior center or future senior center. And I think there's
definitely,
money for that.
yes, and,
That's something we should consider.
definitely. Yeah, that's from the, open space plan, that's one of our goals is to do that somewhere because a lot of the land is rocky, hilly, has a lot of trees, and to make it ADA accessible doesn't make sense. So it'd be nice to have a dedicated trail that, really worked well for that.
Off track though, so you're talking about something the open space committee wants to do, but it's also part of the master plan, so I knew where it came from into the master plan, but implementation of the master plan, has that been discussed with anybody yet or other committees? Like, is there any focus on execution now?
An ADA path?
Well, I know
Is that
that
what you're-
ADA accessibility on walking paths and trails and things was in the master plan as well, and I'm assuming, Ann, you brought that forward as part of the master plan?
Um,
Well, it's part
well,
of,
I mean, I think that's,
open space and rec plan is the one I was referencing, but I think it's in
Yeah.
both.
So somebody, probably either you, Dan, or you, Ann, brought that forward to say this should be in the master plan, because I see it in the implementation matrix. I'm just wondering what action or planning has started to actually execute against that.
well, for my part, it's, finding out where the senior center is gonna be. And then that would be a great location to have an ADA path, right by the senior center.
Right, okay.
I do, yeah. I mean,
So
there-
it might be like a coordinated, like, come to town meeting, we could say, and CPA would put in this much money for ADA trails, something like that, possibly.
I think the coordinating part is the thing I'm waiting to hear more about. How do we collaborate to make sure that master plan stuff happens?
There's been conversation, with that housing project and trying to do something tied into that, but now this could change things. I mean, honestly, I think that's what needs to come from the future leadership.
Mhm.
When we get an administrator in place, I would think those are the things that they should be focusing on, bringing together, perhaps bringing together committees, parks, land use, whoever is in charge of these pieces and saying, hey, let's focus on this. So, I mean,
Well, I was more fishing to see what actually has been talked in terms of action versus,
I think my perspective from like this open space and rec plan, there's a big gap in specifically with accessibility and ADA stuff, and we really haven't been able to do any of it. We have little things that have been funded, but there are these big projects that have to get coordinated and
And I would say Dan and our focus has been open space and recreation. So a lot of the other stuff in the open, master plan is probably other committees and people, to focus on. So why don't we vote on this motion for the Vandersloot property? Mike made the motion, Kathy seconded it. So all those in favor?
I
I,
Peter?
Abstain.
Okay. And then I. And that is all I have. Anything else anyone else has to bring up? I guess the one thing I'd mention is on November 13th, on a Monday night, we're holding this public hearing for the action plan, comments on the action plan for the open space and recreation plan, and you can go to the town website. I can send out the link. And you can send comments, by email or attending the meeting. So I'll send that out.
I should send this internally. I just send it to all the sports people, but I could send it to the town list too. Just
That
in
would be
case.
great. That's a neat, yeah, let's do that. Are you also posting anything on Facebook when the date gets closer?
Yeah, it did get posted already. I'll post it again.
Okay. Okay,
Whenever you put it on the website, that, what's her name? Karen, who runs that group, she pretty much reposts anything instantly when it goes up on the website now. So that's kind of nice.
okay, great. All right. Does anyone want to make a motion to adjourn?
So moved?
Second.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. And I think